Greetings and salutations, Internet citizens. This is Wolfphototech, and here we are with another delightful video. This time, I'm going to, just for the fun of it, going to cover this book. This actually originally MSRP'd for $30, considering it's a hardcover. That's a pretty good deal. So, what is this book? This is the Dark Eye Basic Rules book. There's this RPG is very popular in Germany. This is basically the king of fantasy RPGs in Germany and the areas immediately adjacent around Germany. So, what is the Dark Eye? It is this not Dungeons and Dragons in mechanics, but sort of a different take in that direction. First and foremost, this book happens to be around 183 pages long. As I said, this is the basic rules book. So we open up to black and white pages with grayscale. This is, by the way, published in the United States by Fan Pro, where the 5th edition was published by Ulisses. First and foremost, this is very typical. This was published in 2003. This is actually very typical for 80s, 90s, and early 2000s TTRPG being black and white, no color pages. You sometimes would get colored books from that era, but you know, there you go. You got a nice big table of contents right here, and an introduction to role-playing, because oftentimes in Europe this is actually one of the TTRPGs that is the first for some people to get into TTRPGs with. So they quickly go over role-playing in general. You definitely get the vibe of European setting. There you go. Some artwork. And typically every page in this book typically will have artwork in it. So it's overall a very nice book. Once we get to this section right here, a brief survey of the game rules. We come to this section right here around page 14, where the character sheets are. By the way, my personal opinion on the character sheets for 4th edition Dark Eye is that they're actually exceedingly clean and well set up. And at a quick glance, you can easily read them from top to bottom. There's just enough detail decoration added to them to easily make it look pretty. Yet at the same time, everything makes sense at quick glance. But anyways, if you had any issues, there happens to be on page 14 here a key section explaining each one of these box sections and areas in the whole character sheet. It only takes up 2 sides of a single sheet. I always kind of enjoy games with that kind of setup, where you only really need 1 or 2 sheets to play them. It quickly goes over all the basic systems in the game, the combat system and the social system and so forth. It gets you into that nice touch and feel of a medieval European fantasy game. As I said, just about every page in this book has a piece of artwork on it. And, you know, just flip through here. Basically walks you through the basic character construction path here. And explains the setting. You got the various ancestors or races in the system. Various humans, elves, and dwarves. Nice little piece of artwork. They're showing off various individuals. and from cultures. Various locations or regions around the world in which this takes place in, where your character could come from, which is very nice. Then you have a nice little section on professions, which basically is the classes for this system. And by the way, if you notice that there's right down here 0 GP, 10 GP, and so forth, starting values 25. Each ancestry or race, profession, and traits, advantages, disadvantages in the system, have a cost factor to them. So like if you want to play an elf, you have to spend points to play an elf. If you want to play a dwarf, you have to spend points to play a dwarf. Humans, I think, are completely free. If you want to play a pirate, it's just 5. Physician is 0. A mountebank is 0. A messenger is 0. And so forth. And the point systems in this system help balance out the game mechanics, ensuring that everyone is roughly around the same plane of power in the system. This is a very common system that dates... This style of system dates back from like the 1980s. This was the big contender against Dungeons and Dragons. Many people have always cited that D&D has always had this really wonkiness where you have some classes who become very strong early on and they lose power over time, and other ones that are weak at the beginning and get stronger over time, and some of them that have inconsistent trajectories on their skill path. Some classes require high skill or high understanding of the mechanics of the system for Dungeons and Dragons in order to be played well. A good example is a monk. Typically, monks are typically hard classes, so to play well, you have to actually know the game mechanics very well inside and outside in order to unlock the full potential of the monk, as well as have good rules on character stats if you really want to be powerful. But monks require a great deal of skill in D&D. This system goes in a totally different direction of like, we're not going to have all our classes and ancestries or races and abilities all over the place, rising and falling. We're going to build in a system where you start out with a certain level of points, and you spend those points to choose what race you want to be and what class you want to be. Warrior is 20 GP, and so forth. After the races and the classes, we get into our fun little section called advantages and disadvantages. And this is a nice little area in which you can customize your character. Say like, oh, I'm colorblind. Let's see, what's the disadvantage for colorblind? I get back X many points. I can spend those points on something else, like being ambidextrous or something like that, and so forth. So it's actually a really interesting system for building very broad, very unique characters, yet at the same time, they're all balanced within a certain range, so that they're not one person is radically more powerful than another person. So like, hard to inspell, 7 GP, that's an advantage. Elven worldview, there's an asterisk there, and you have to go into looking at that. Disadvantages is arrogance, astral block, bad hearing. If you have bad hearing, you get a -5 to your GP, so you get 5 GP back to spend out somewhere else if you want to in the advantages, and so forth. They got this nice little section right here after the disadvantages on 20 questions for your hero. And then they go into the talent system for your character. like singing, body control, etc., and so forth. Climbing. We got a little more into the combat rules in detail here. This is the more nuanced section in the combat rules and lucky attacks and so forth. Guy from the great How to Be a Great GM. This is, I believe, this is one of his main systems he favors playing is the Dark Eye. I have yet to recall actually double checking back to see on his channel if he does actually have a whole bunch of guides on how to play it. It might have been a long time ago. This section right here, other rules, covers like time, space, long jumps, high jumps, strategic movement, and so forth. Hauling, encumbrance and carrying, and so forth. Rules that are stuff outside of combat. Much like Dungeons & Dragons, the Dark Eye is very heavy on combat rules, with some extra rules outside of that to cover social encounters and exploration and doing various other fun things. And then we go into the section on spells, how to do magic, what kind of spells, elf songs, and so forth. And then we go into on page 141 the explanation of the world setting of Aventuria. And then in a few more pages from there on, you got some creatures, such as lizard people, orgs, goblins, orcs, and so forth. Giant amoeba, lindworms, lurker in the snow, skeletons, wild beasts, unicorns. And then we go into a few more bits in the back here about player tips and archetypes and so forth. And as I said before, almost every 2 pages there's a piece of artwork or every page. And then we have right back here, right about page 177, is a really nice index that spans several pages, as well as a very nice map right here, just before the character sheet. And there you go. By the way, this game system started back in 1983. So there you go. From what I can tell you, considering what the price range would be for this book, might be a little more expensive now to come by. And how well written the book is overall, and the nice, easy way of reading through it. That this system is very well thought out. They put a lot of time in putting into this. So my preliminary score for what I can come from this, from paging through this book a few times and reading parts and stuff like that, is that this system, and specifically this book, should be much better off in the rating than what I'm going to give it. But I'm going to give it like basically a 3.5, 3.75 star ranking here. Considering how well it's made, and have not played this, by the way, this might actually be in the mid 4-star range. This book also includes a lot of information on culture of a medieval-esque world, such as class systems and so forth, social class systems and such. So this might actually be like a good alternate path instead of going with, say, like Lion and Dragon. If you didn't want to go with a D&D side medieval setup system, you want something that's more granular, you go this route. The only problem with these kinds of systems, such like these or Pathfinder 2nd Edition or Traveler or Cyberpunk or anything else is that because there's a higher degree range of customization that comes into the system, if your characters die in the adventure, it takes you a much longer time to build a new character than it would be for a classic Dungeons and Dragons game. So I would advise, if you were going to go this route, is to get into the habit of making a second character as a backup character. So there you go. From what I've seen of this book and my look into the 5th edition of the Dark Eye, is that this is, by the way, this is not compatible with Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. By the way, the 5th edition is color pages, and this is the pocket version of the book. It still follows the same basic structure and concept as 4th edition character construction. But anyways, it would take much longer to build a character, but it also is much more balanced in its game construction, and I'm actually on the list of people who would very much would like to try out playing the Dark Eye 5th edition. This is the 4th edition book, but I would very much be up for that. I just have to somehow find the time and to find a group for it. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a delightful day, a nice night, a wonderful week, and a magnificent month, and see you next time. Ciao.